Smeagol. That's what I call one of my neighbors. He used to lurk in the stairwell and peek through the bathroom window. At first, I thought he was just shy, but then I caught him eating meat off the floor in what seemed like a satanic ritual. Once I caught him stalking me and my neighbors multiple times. Eventually, the police had to get involved, and trust me, that wasn't the last time they showed up in my neighborhood. People might say that there are no ghettos in Shanghai, and sure, there are no ghettos in Shanghai, at least not the ones that you're used to, right? You won't find the Comando Vermelho or the Mara Salvatrucha in China, right? And nor the kind of rudimentary architecture found at the favelas or barrios. In fact, Chinese neighborhoods are extremely safe. But, one cannot deny the existence of old, unmaintained neighborhoods. And, the reality is that you'll find working class families, relatively well off families, and everything in between. Now, knowing that many Chinese got their houses from either the government or through their parents, not everyone has the luxury of choosing where they want to live. A really nice neighborhood in the 1980s today can be a dystopian slum. Honestly, I ended up living in the slum because I was in a rush. I I was really in a rush to move out, and I signed the contract because the apartment looked really nice inside, but I didn't realize what I was getting into. If you find a place you like and you decide you want to sign the contract, it's really important that you document everything on video and photos. I'm talking about scratches, stains, cracks, all the things that are not working, and ask them to repair them immediately because unfortunately, some very few landlords and agents might try to charge you for pre-existing damage. For example, the damn laminated wood flooring, man. It gets easily water damage and they're meant to be changed every 10 years. And if you don't document the damage and ask for immediate repairs, chances are you will end up damaging the floor even more. In very rare cases, of course, you might get a ridiculous tear and wear fee deducted from your deposit when you leave. So just to protect yourself, man, you gotta really let them repair every single damage you see. And I think like renting apps like Zoom are often fair in this regard, but man, it's always good to be cautious, in my opinion. Now, when it comes to choosing where to live, look, Shanghai is massive. And yes, your experience in Shanghai and in China overall is what you make of it. But trust me, where you choose to live matters a lot. In my opinion, many foreigners like to live in what I call the BBC, because it has the shape of a BBC, a big black cat. The area is great if you like socializing, international restaurants, and imported grocery. If that's your vibe, then stick to the BBC. But when people abroad get hired by companies or students choose a university in Shanghai, they don't often understand where they're going to be sent to. Some people end up living in places that might feel a bit isolating. For example, and then again, this is only my opinion, right? Chongming, Baoshan, Yaping, Qingpu, Songjiang, Jingshan, Fengxiang, and parts of Pudong and Ninghan. If you want a fully local Chinese experience, you'll be just fine. But man, if you're looking for an international cosmopolitan vibe, then I think you might feel a little bit isolated living in those places. And unfortunately, headhunters and universities rarely ever explain these realities to the people. And it's fine. It's not their responsibility. But at the same time, I think that, uh, the people living in those areas, they can still get the essentials. Speaking of essentials, you're going to need an affordable VPN. And that's why I recommend SimpleLink VPN, the sponsor of this video. Click on the link in the description to sign up for a free trial. Now, back to renting. Look, if your budget is tight, but you want to stay in the center of Shanghai, that is possible, but watch out for some red flags out there. For instance, Super cheap places often have issues, naturally. Now, some studios are just big apartments divided with thin drywall, so you'll hear everything. Smells from the neighbors cooking, expect it. If they smoke, you'll know. If they cough their lungs out every morning, you'll know. Now, noise, goddamn, it's another issue. Drilling in the mornings is constant, and I think, no, you know what? It's not fair for me to say that it's constant, but it's not uncommon either. I think it should be declared China's intangible cultural heritage. If someone on the seventh floor is drilling a hole on their wall, you'll feel it on the sixth, fifth, fourth, and third floors. Man, streets are really a gamble. This city, man, Shanghai. I know it's a Shanghai thing, but this city, they love road work. And they're always repairing a street or a sidewalk everywhere you go at the most random hours of the day, right? Or the night. Now, and then there are the neighbors. Jesus. In one apartment, my elderly neighbors had this ritual every morning at 7 a.m. They would fling open their doors and let all the cigarette smell flow, and then blast the TV news, gossip in the hallways, and sometimes gossip was even louder than the TV. So, the thing is that they were so kind to me that I never actually complained. And, if you think about it, they've been living there for decades, and suddenly a white or black demon moves in to disturb the status quo of the neighborhood. Nah, man, that's not gonna happen. So the thing is that something that I have learned the hard way is that studios under 5,000 RMB often mean major compromises. We're talking about dirty and disorderly neighborhoods, thin, dry walls, constant noise by either machinery, kids, or neighbors. And the lingering smells like kitchen fumes, man. Kitchen fumes of the kind that give you cancer after 30 years. So when the price seems too good to be true, it probably is. But hey, that's part of the Shanghai experience, I guess. Something that really helps me decide where to live is trusting my instincts. Sometimes the question is the answer. If you are having doubts about a place, then probably that's the answer you need. One thing I've learned is that neighborhoods built in the late 80s and early 90s are usually a nightmare. Why? Well, they're poorly maintained or they're falling apart. And your best bet is to find something built after the year 2000. It will be in better shape and still within a reasonable budget. Now, some apps like Zoom show you when the neighborhood was built, so you can have an idea of what kind of neighborhood you're getting into, right? But then again, you might find nice places regardless of when it was built. Now, if you're trying to save some money but want to stay in the city center, many people go for share apartments. Now, the thing is that roommates can make or break your experience. In my case, most of the Chinese roommates I had in the past have been amazing, but I've heard of some horror stories out there. Some buildings like the ones rented through Zoom even have an age limit, usually no over 50, I think. And yeah, sure, it might be ageism, but let's be honest, older roommates, they have very different habits and their ways of living might be totally different than yours. So, it's just about compatibility. And, even with roommates of your same cohort, especially those who have been living there for a long time, they might try to boss you around or claim communal areas as their own. And if that happens, man, you got to stand your ground from the very beginning, because this is the classic standoff phase where they're trying to check how much they can get away with. You really got to check your contract and to know your rights and communicate with your landlord if things get a little bit of a hand. Now, renting apps, they usually really enforce their policies. But in any case, don't let anyone make you feel like a guest in your own apartment. That's the first thing I've known. Now, once you've paid, don't expect much from brokers or the middle person, because look, after they've got your money, they often vanish until your contract's about to expire, and then they suddenly care, right? And it's a little bit frustrating, especially if your apartment has issues. So don't believe them when they call you and say that you have to sign out the contract again quickly because lots of people are trying to get the apartment. Most of the times it's total BS, especially if the apartment is just an okay apartment in an okay location. Whatever you do, don't be that foreigner that signs a 1 year or 2 year or even 3 year lease just to save a little bit of rent every month. People regret it all the time. Plans change, apartments have issues, and you just want to move sometimes. Like, and then you're stuck. My advice, start with a short term lease. Then you have to offer 3 months or even 1 month rentals. Live there and see how it feels in different seasons, and then decide from there. After a few months, you'll know if it's worth staying long term, but it's always good to confirm with the agent or landlord that the house will be available for rent for the entire time you plan to stay. Sometimes because, I don't know, lack of communication, you might encounter yourself in a situation in which you're unable to renew your contract and have to find another place in a hurry, and you might end up in a really bad place. So, always prepare in advance and ask if the apartment can be rented for 3, 6, or 12 months without interruptions, right? This is probably one of the things that will make your stay smooth. Anyway, let me tell you about Spiegel, one of my neighbors when I moved into this neighborhood in Yampo district. I thought it was a pretty nice neighborhood, to be honest with you, but that was at first. The day after I moved in, I remember I saw this 10-year-old boy casually walking outside naked, holding a trash bag. And he strolled like, 25 meters to throw it away and walked right back like it was not a big deal. And none of the neighbors even blinked. So that makes me think he often did that. But anyway, and I started noticing other things. Many of my neighbors seem disabled. One guy had one eye pointing to the left and the other one right, and you never knew where he was looking. Another one had just one tooth and a limp. But Smeagol was something else. At first I thought he had a job, but I quickly realized he probably didn't. He wasn't old enough to be retired, so I guess he was always at home due to some sort of mental disability. I was pretty puzzled by Smeagol, but things took a different turn when I caught him eating meat off the floor. No plate, no utensils, just him squatting in the stairwell, eating in the dark. And when he heard people coming, he rushed back in and peeked through the door to see if they were gone. And man, like look, it was just, I didn't feel scared. I was just a little bit creeped out. And I remember I used these fake footsteps, pretending that I had already left just to catch him picking, just then say ni hao to him. He would respond with these weird runs only when he was in a good mood. Otherwise, he would just ignore me. But he scared me a couple of times, especially around 3 a.m. But to be fair, I also scared him a few times, but just tiptoeing and pretending no one was coming. But and it wasn't just me, my friends were creeped out too. Eventually I noticed him stalking me and even some neighbors, and um I didn't call the police. I didn't mind that much, but my neighbors did, and the police showed up a few times, but no one, including the police, ever knew what to do with him. Later, I found out that the neighborhood was originally a retirement home for disabled people, and many residents were just family members of those in the nearby asylum. And, it explained a lot, if I'm being honest with you. But the chaos didn't stop there. I remember that one time the police showed up because a man with Alzheimer's locked himself inside his apartment thinking his own son was a thief. The son had to stand outside with this speaker begging for him to open the door. And Jesus, man, there was always something happening in the neighborhood. And then there were the e-bike charging incidents. People threw cables out of the windows, the high windows, to charge their bikes from their apartments, which one time led to a car's windshield getting cracked. And man, no one wanted to take the blame. And the arguing went on forever late at night until the cops showed up. But geez, man, luckily I had signed a short-term contract for that apartment. Like, man, I love that apartment, but it really felt like home. But the neighborhood, not so much. And man, I come from the third world, so I know when I'm a bad, but even so, it was a bit too much for me. Anyway, my advice, a very generic one, mostly a platitude. Always weigh your options carefully. You don't want to get stuck in a long-term contract in a place that drives you insane. That's all for today. Like, comment, and subscribe if you enjoyed this video. This was La Waish, and see you next time.